and we'll go ahead and get started. And we can just introduce ourselves around the room because not everybody knows everybody, and it's always good to have a little informal time. I'll just mention you in the order that you come through on my participants list. Stas, here, I'll introduce myself. I'm Randy Fay. I'm the lead maintainer of the DDEV project. And as we were just talking, I'm here in Palisade, Colorado, which is in the far west of Colorado, almost to the Utah border in the US, and on the edge between the desert and the mountains. And we've had a pretty dry winter so far. People aren't panicking yet, but they'll panic after a while. So we depend on snowfall for our water sources. And so agriculturally and even domestic water is dependent on that snowfall. And so when we get to the end of a winter with poor snowfall, everybody starts to panic. But it's still January, so people haven't started panicking yet. But Stas, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Stas Zhuk. I'm from Kremenchuk, Ukraine. I work as a DDEV maintainer, and I don't have such explicit weather information.
Oh, he has lots of explicit information. It's just that it's a difficult time and he's not telling us all of it. How much electricity did you have today?
It's working fine. The previous 2 weeks we had electricity, so it was such blackouts were only the last year.
Okay. Well, hopefully things will be calm and predictable. So, Jonas, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Jonas. I'm from the Typo 3 community mostly. I adore DDEV and the functionality that it brings for us, which is very unique. That's why I'm actually very sad at the moment to hear that we have a financial problem. Yeah, I hope maybe we can solve something of that today.
We'll work through it as a community, and we'll be fine. Yeah, that is our big topic today, making sure that we can figure that sort of thing out. So Jonas has made enormous contributions to DDEV along the way, stepping in on really interesting and sketchy network things and stuff like that. In fact, I think Jonas and Stas worked together before Stas was full maintainer on some really interesting, sketchy, difficult stuff that nobody else would ever encounter, but they made it work. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Andrew Berry. I'm the Director of Technology at Lullabot, and we use DDEV for every bit of engineering that we do. We've standardized, such as, especially for our Drupal projects, and otherwise, I live in Guelph, Ontario, and yeah, looking forward to today's conversation.
Great to have you. Britt, go ahead. Oh, that's Britt. Okay. Okay, sorry.
I'm the interpreter for Truls.
And Truls is here. Okay.
Truls is here.
I thought your name usually isn't Britt, is it? Okay, sorry.
Yes, I've been before. It's two interpreters today, Britt and Kim.
So yeah, Britt and Kim are interpreting for Truls, and Truls is a long-term contributor, and he'll introduce himself in a minute. Actually, while we're doing this, Truls, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm Truls from Norway. I'm a DevOps consultant with Frontcom. And I've used DDEV for a very long time in many different frameworks, Laravel, Drupal, WordPress, and several things. And I think it's very useful, and I want to use it to continue to contribute to this group.
That's great. Thank you, Truls. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. I am Mark Lebrecq. I am a Drupal developer that lives in Vancouver, BC. I've been working with DDEV for quite some time, three, maybe 4 years. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but yeah, a while. And I've been a big advocate on my team and with other teams to pick it up as a framework to use for local development. It's been great. Yeah, that's it for me.
Excellent. Okay, Matthias.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matthias Bolt-Lesniak. I am the Typo3 project ambassador. I've been using DDEV for a long time. Recently helped introduce DDEV to the government of Somalia, which was interesting. Got lots of nice help from Randy with that. And yeah, I have had some nice conversations with Randy about financing DDEV earlier. And well, I thought this was an opportune moment to join and see where things are going and see if there's anywhere where I can help make Typo3 contribute to DDEV.
And of course, Typo3 has a community idea project, which DDEV submitted an idea to, and it was accepted. So yeah, how about that? So we're already at work on that, integrating XHGUI and improving the XHGUI performance monitoring capabilities of DDEV. We've already made some good improvements there, and that's when that gets completed and accepted, that's a 7,500 euro contribution from Typo3, which is certainly non-trivial. That's a great thing. And I should mention that they do this every quarter, so we need to be queuing up proposals for second quarter. And
that's true. We distribute about 40,000 euros every quarter, so
wow.
You can have multiple projects too if you want to. But it's the members that vote on which projects should be accepted. So it helps submitting the project and then working your way through the politics.
Yeah. So anyway, I for Typo3 folks especially, I'm very interested in advance in ideas that you think would improve DDEV for Typo3, because since we're submitting for essentially a grant from Typo3, it's nice to have things that really appeal to the Typo3 community specifically. Although general stuff helps everybody, and Typo3 loves to help everybody, but it's nice to have things that, you know, have a specific appeal. So if you come across something that you think would be a good project for the next proposal, do bring it up. This was our second proposal, and we didn't get it the first time. We were the first. We were just off the bottom. But anyway, Paul, great to see you. Introduce yourself.
Gotta find the mute button. Hi, I'm Paul Gilzo. I'm a developer relations engineer with platform.sh/Upsun. Where is it? There it is, Upsun. We actually got quite a bit of snow recently. We got a 0.5 centimeter of ice and then about 15 centimeters of snow on top of that. So for those in the States, it's about 1/4 inch of ice and about 6 inches of snow. So all the snow Randy's wanting is actually over here.
Yeah, we've been reading about you in the news.
Yeah, we got hit hard. I'm in the Midwest of the States, and we got hit pretty hard with a big cold weather storm. So that's me.
Cool. Great to have you here today. Let's see if these keep popping around. Someday I'm going to learn in Zoom how to fix them so that you can just see who's next. Ralph, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ralph from Nuremberg, Germany. I'm in content strategy and in the context of Drupal, mainly active in the fields of accessibility group and UX, and using DDEV for a while. And using it mainly for testing issues on Drupal.
One thing that that Ralph is famous for is he runs the head version of DDEV every single day. And it is so great. We don't often have a problem, but we always want to know before a release comes out that there is some awkwardness or something like that. And it's really, really lovely. So, Selwyn, go ahead.
Hi, by the way, Randy, just FYI, the trick that I've learned with Zoom is you can drag the tiles around on your desktop. So if you want, you can just drag the people like up and then everyone down and to your right. You haven't introduced yet. That's one trick.
And how would you feel about that, being dragged around like that?
Oh, that's fine. It's just, we don't actually notice it. It just happens on your desktop unless you tell it to follow host order. Then we all move around randomly. Anyway, just a trick. So yeah, so Selwyn Pollitt, I'm in Austin, Texas in the US, Drupal developer, and I am the author of Drupal at Your Fingertips, online Drupal resource for developers. That's me.
All right, great to have you. Did I get everybody? I think I did. Let's take a look here again. I think that's everybody. Okay, good. Is there anybody who would be willing to do the notes as we go along? There's a link to it in the agenda. Anybody willing to take that on?
I've got it open. I'm happy to help, but I'm not good at taking notes. So.
Well, thank you for doing it anyway. And anybody else is welcome to help with that. See if you can get the attendees in there.
I got that.
Yeah. Oh, you're there. You're on it. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
That part I can handle, but once we get into the discussion, I'm bloody awful at it. So if someone else can please kick in.
I certainly know how that goes.
Looking at you.
I'm the usual note taker, but I'm not fluent in English, so it's better you do it. But I'll help if.
That's great.
We can do it together. Yeah.
All right, excellent.
All right. Well, so our plan was today to do our annual review and our planning for the coming year. But perhaps it's a little bit early in everybody's year for that anyway. It's hard to, most of you are just recovering from having been out for earlier parts of the year. And so it was, it was going to be a little questionable anyway, but then we had a change in our financial situation that I thought I just felt like I would really enjoy and appreciate the thinking and discussion from the group about that. So I wanted everybody to be aware of it and know what that was and what it meant, and be able to collaborate on our response and thinking about that. So, hi, Mike. Glad to see you snuck in. That's great. So the financial situation is that, like many organizations of their kind, platform.sh has decided to cut back on some expenses, and DDEV is one of those expenses. And so they are still going to stay involved with DDEV. At least they're committing to 1 year, but they have. I am no longer an employee, which is how they were funding the organization. And what they're going to do instead is do 3,000 euros a month to the DDEV Foundation, which is actually, it does give us more, it gives us quite a bit more control of their of their money, which is great. I mean, it gives us more control of the money instead of it going to me and us not having full control. So we may be able to take that money and use it toward the idea that we've been floating for some time of increasing Stas's billable hours, his limit on that. There are a number of ways that that's good, but of course, it's also a significant decrease in their contribution. It's what, about a third of what they were doing, and it is it's definitely a financial change. It's for me, there is both good and bad. It means that I don't have a salary now. I think I will get we'll talk about budget proposals a little bit later. I imagine that I will get something in most months. I don't have a salary, but on the other hand, it is and it is it is emotionally a thing to lose your job. That you've all been through that. That's a thing, like they don't like me anymore kind of thing. But on the other hand, I was never a very good fit as an employee, and I prefer to manage my own time, and I prefer to not have to ask anybody when I'm going to go on a vacation or whatever, that kind of thing. So that is not a bad, it's not a bad fit. It's not a bad thing from that perspective. And Platform has a lot going on, and they they never really got engaged in DDEV. So that made it a little weirder for them, because they are sponsoring this project that they don't, that, like I say, they've launched a whole product and they're trying to change their name to Upsun, and they've got an enormous amount of things going on. And DDEV is not a direct impact there. So I think there's good things there for everybody involved, but it is definitely a challenge. And the challenge actually is apparently industry-wide, because we've had some long-term sponsors that are, that have really been treasuring their sponsorship of DDEV for a long time, that have had to step back. So we've lost a couple of $100 and a $200 a month supporter, and there's a $500 a month supporter that says they'll be uncertain after April. But we did get a new $100 a month supporter this week, which was quite a nice thing to see.
Randy, just to confirm, they continue €3,000 per month. Yes. Until December.
Well, it's renewable. It's renewable.
Mm-hmm.
So their commitment is for a year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, thank you. Feel free to speak up anytime as I blab along here. I just put notes into the agenda to go through, but feel free to speak up anytime with your thoughts or responses. There have been
which means we have to
go ahead.
sponsor. Is there? I know of GitHub sponsors, and have we evaluated maybe Patreon or other ways?
So what we most of our larger sponsors do invoicing, and so they do a bank transfer or ACH or something like that, so that the transaction costs are less, because GitHub Sponsors has they raised their costs, their frictional cost a bit a year or so ago.
Yeah.
GitHub Sponsors is a fantastic technique because people just, it just keeps working. It keeps working month after month. And when we have encouraged people to get off of GitHub Sponsors, they have a tendency to like go to an annual payment, which is we're very happy to do. But then, unfortunately, when the next annual payment comes up, it looks too big, and they don't want to do it, in this time. So monthly GitHub Sponsors has been an excellent technique, but we haven't. Because we have the DDEV Foundation, which is a U.S. nonprofit, as our what do they call it? As our fiscal entity, I guess that's what they call it. Because we have that, and because we have our own bank account and all the things that one needs, we don't actually need something like Patreon or the other common nonprofit things. And I could be wrong, but I don't think they're that attractive to people for making donations, more attractive than GitHub. But we could do it. We could, we could absolutely do it.
Just personally for me, GitHub Sponsors became less attractive because they don't accept PayPal anymore. It's only credit card. So that was a bit difficult for me.
So just so you know,
otherwise,
we directly accept PayPal. So
look.
So that's on the, that's on the donations page. So we have a PayPal account, and
I see.
people can do that directly, and that's a fairly good situation as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're happy to do anything that as far as the technique, we're happy to do anything that works for people. Mostly it's getting people to give that's the problem, not how to give, because we have so many ways. And we have one donor that does $1,000 a month, and they do it through ACH, which is really very nice. We have a couple other donors that do a build $100 a month, and they send that's actually ACH to via our invoicing. So we invoice them because the idea is that supporting DDEV is a business expense. It's a choice of a business expense, not it's not just a donation. And so for companies that are donating, it makes a lot more sense for them to see it as an expense. And in most countries, I think for tax reasons, that's good as well. I have at recent conferences, I have actually made appointments and talked with some larger potential donors in hosting space, or in in agencies, and sat down with them and had really very good interaction, and an informal statement of support, and yes, we'll do it, and etc. But then when you go away from the conference, they ghost you on emails and stuff like that. So that's I imagine that has to do with the nature of in-person versus actual action, and I imagine it has to do with the current agency situation, and it certainly may have to do with me not being good at closing the deal, but it is a
Ren, you know the answer there. You've got to have the invoice right with you, and you roll the pen down, let them sign right there.
I know, yeah.
I'll take that check now.
Yeah, except they don't have the authority to write a check, et
Oh,
cetera,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So yeah,
Right.
but there are certainly people that are better at closing the deal than me because I haven't been closing very many.
Hey, Randy, do you have a sense of like who are the top 10 organizations that use DDEV or anything like that? Like not not open source organizations, but companies, for-profit organizations.
So you're saying who are the largest users?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are several agencies, Lullabot would be one of them, and Lullabot is a donor, by the way. There's several agencies that use DDEV exclusively, and very few of them are donors. And oh, hi there. Yeah. All right. Come here. All right. There we go.
That seems like a really good place to start.
Yeah.
As far as, let's, leverage the fact that, they rely on it so much, and, we don't have to try and land a whale, but just kind of get them in the club. And yeah, it's difficult work. I know. I've been there.
Absolutely. It's also, it's very important, and it's also a difficult time, and it's also not what I'm great at. And so anyway, it's
Could you share that? Do you have that list? I mean, I don't think that you don't have like a quantitative list, but you probably have like a qualitative list of who the top.
yeah, I don't have an exact list. I do have a list of people that I've tried to work with for hosting an agency, especially type people.
I mean, I think that'd be interesting to if you could write that down and put it in the notes or share it, just so we all have an idea of, who are the top users, which ones are contributing, because you never know, some of us might have, inside contacts that we might be able to help with some of those.
I'll do that as a follow-up, and I'll send a note to the group. So it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Some organizations, some agencies are really quite large, and we don't even see them as an agency in DDEV. We just see them as occasional support. And there are, of the people that we actually see show up for support or whatever, I'm pretty sure that we only see 5% of our users. We've done some looking at who the users are, and even though we see some great friends, and some of you are among them, we see some great friends show up in Discord or in the issue queue or all the other places. Apparently 95% of DDEV users are out there just using it day after day, and it's all fine. And, and that's great. That's great, but it does limit our interaction with them. In recent years, as we have lost my places. The cat's moving around here. Okay, there we go. But that's a good idea. And I do have a blog post ready to go today about open source, and that let me just give you that, about the open source pledge and DDEV. I haven't promoted this yet, but this is coming up. I don't know whether anybody will pay attention to that or not, because as Mark says, it is the open source conundrum that when you're not forced to pay for something, you don't. And figuring out how to make it clear to people how DDEV has explicit value to them and why they should pay for a thing is a critical piece for DDEV in every open source project.
This might be a naive question, but I don't know how this would work, but I mean, has there ever been thought of priority support for a certain level of donor? And is that possible under the financial instrument that we currently have?
Yeah, we absolutely have that. That actually is on our, that we have an agenda to promote different levels of donor. And so, for example, we can have a private support channel on Discord, and it's a bit of a misnomer because everybody gets such great support there anyway that
well, you created that problem yourself, so only yourself to blame.
I mean, with DDEV, you get better support than you get from any commercial organization.
Sure.
But if you give people a private channel, then that is a thing. It's a special thing that's their own. And the reality is, I am, Tag One is our, they've been taking care of DDEV for a long time. And I've been in Tag One Slack for all these years, and they do ask their questions over there, and they like that. So that's, there we go. Okay, Ralph, go ahead.
One point that might be a plus in regards of that private channel would be the question of privacy, meaning if someone is paying, that person wouldn't have to worry about any disclosures they got with clients, and they could simply paste their questions in there and don't have to anonymize things.
I think that, I do think that's definite value. Definite value. So.
I mean, maybe, I don't know what the backlog looks like for DDEV itself, but, maybe it's time to kind of prioritize some of these ideas that would lead to revenue or donations. I don't know from a technical standpoint, things like setting up that, a private channel for a certain level of financial support. I think, and I think we've talked about this before, either you and I, Randy, have, I don't know if it's been in one of these calls, but, the ability to put a message, in DDEV every time someone does a DDEV start, that's valuable real estate that can be, provided as a perk for folks with certain levels of support. I mean, if, before platform changed their financial situation, we were looking for a way to increase the donations so that we could give more and more to STAs. It seems like that is more of a front burner issue now that platform has reduced their support. So maybe that's something that we can reprioritize some of the technical tasks to help support hopefully increased donations.
Are you talking about putting an ad in the DDEV start thing?
Yeah, I don't like calling it an ad, but I just think it's more of like a thank you to.
Oh, but do you know we do that already? I mean, do you see the one that comes up for Tag One,
Yeah.
the one that comes up for platform?
I just think it could be more.
Uh-huh.
It could be like something that is promoted as, if you support DDEV at this level, then this is what we'll do for you.
Yeah, that is actually our. That is. So, we should probably get back to the agenda and return.
Oh,
Randy, Randy, and now it suddenly got a little bit difficult to hear you. So I don't know what's happened, but you had a clear voice previously, but now it's difficult to hear you.
Can you hear me
It's
now?
the winter cold.
It was better, but now it's kind of like the sound got.
I put the. I was having a hard. So
now it's much better. Thank you.
And so we'll see how it goes. Thank you. So yeah, so just so you know, last summer we contracted with Open Strategy Partners to work on this whole class of problem and to try to build a very specific thing to for people to purchase and to do it at different levels and to have specific benefits. And we worked on that quite a bit and have some basics for that. But as you know, I think we talked about it at the November meeting, we had to end that partnership because we didn't have enough money for it. So they were doing it as a sponsored thing. You know, they were only charging us half price, but it was still our bank balance was going down every month, and we didn't want to do that. So let's go back to the agenda and work our way through that. And ideas and especially initiatives are also very welcome. A lot of the suggestions that people make just mean, Randy, why don't you do this? And those aren't very successful because there's a limit of Randy, and that sort of thing. So that's a thing. So Mark mentioned that creators can make something from merch. I'm sure you know, Mark, that we do have that. We do have the ability to buy T-shirts and that kind of thing, but we get $12 a month off of it or something. They're too expensive. We don't know, and there is already a shop, but they're too expensive especially for outside the US, but even in the US, they're too expensive. And if we figured out how to do them as a mass purchase, a large scale purchase, we could bring the price down, but then we'd have to manage the shipping and all that. So so Bernardo Martinez worked all that out, which is great. And he made all that happen. And you can even buy a DDEV shower curtain, I think, or a DDEV bath rug. You can get all these things, but yeah, it's not currently a thing. Matthias.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the whole awareness thing about DDEV. You know, we come into this situation very often where, you know, you pay for the thing that's most visible to you. I just spent a couple of minutes now looking aside at, you know, how do we talk about DDEV, both in the Type 3 documentation, and I visited the Drupal documentation as well. And it is an idea to, you know, be more proactive from, you know, what should we call us? You know, the open source projects that are using DDEV and that are recommending people to use DDEV, that we also maybe state on the, you know, installation pages, install Drupal using DDEV, install Type 3 using DDEV, that, well, DDEV is, as is our CMS, also an open source project, and here's a link to support it. And I don't know, it's probably not going to bring in, you know, lots of $5,000 donations every month, but it's, you know, it heightens the awareness around the needs that DDEV has.
Yeah, I don't know how. It is important for people to at least understand it, but it is awfully easy for them to ignore that. Let's go ahead and talk about the specifics of what we need to do right now, since I don't think that increasing our income is a short-term solution. So using our income as best we can is what I think is the right thing to do. And of course, to always continue all the other things, but it's apparently a hard time out there. Our current income situation in an ordinary month, we get about $3,000 a month in income, and our current bank balance is about $8,600. Our current expense strategy is that Stas bills hours at $50 an hour, and he caps his invoice at 80 hours at $4,000 a month. And when he does more than that, which he has often done, he discounts to come out at 4,000. So we have on that, with our current income strategy, we always know essentially that our expenses will be in between 3,000 and 4,000. Since Platform became a donor in those couple of years, I have got nothing from the DDEV Foundation finances, because that was that's part of how they work with employees. They don't allow you to do outside work. And besides, it didn't make any sense when they were giving me a good salary to do that. Now, one of the things that the proposed budget strategy is one of the key things that I wanted to talk about today, because it allows us to work on our, I appreciate your advice. So the proposed budget strategy is, for now, Stas cap remains the same. I'll bill at the same hourly rate that he does, but I'll discount any hours that would bring the bank balance below $6,000. And then and that should fit within our income, assuming that we can get the platform income going, which I'm sure will take, that will require some back and forth to get that working. As you know, anytime you start up something with bank transfers and everything, there's always some complexity. My hope is that what we can do as the income bounces back and platform support kicks in is we can increase Stas's cap higher, so that he can increase the amount of time that he devotes to DDEV. His contract that he'd been doing for 7 years ended at the end of the year as well. So another agency thing going on, apparently. As Stas and I talk about this proposed strategy and the proposal of increasing his time that he can spend on DDEV, he was reluctant to see, for example, if we tried to take almost all of our income and try to fund that as a salary for him, he felt that he would be uncomfortable with that, because I wouldn't be getting anything with that strategy. And I understand that concern. So anyway, I would like to ask you what you think about that budgeting strategy for the near term. Okay.
How does it impact you, though?
What's that?
How does it impact you?
Well, it means that I'll likely have some I'll have some income. As you know, I'm old. I have Social Security. We ought to be retired, but instead I'm working on DDEV, and I love working on DDEV, and it's great. It's all good. I do understand that the optics of it, and I do understand that it's not entirely fair for an entire huge community to benefit from me working full-time or close to full-time on something that they're not financially contributing to. that's a thing.
Yeah.
And could I get discouraged about that? It's possible. Is that a problem right now? Nah, it's not like it's all fine. But I really do hope for other contributors like Stas being the future of DDEV. I'm quite old. We don't, none of us, we're all finite. I'm more finite than anybody else in the room. And so I do see Stas and other contributors as the future of DDEV, and I want that to work out and work out well. By the way, we're always, even though we've been so amazingly successful with Stas, we're always looking for other contributors and maintainers, and we'd like to promote more maintainers and have more maintainers come to the level of Stas, although I don't know whether anybody could ever get to the level of Stas, but we can hope, right? We have worked very hard to make sure that Stas has the keys to the kingdom, but having the keys to everything is not the whole deal. Having the ability that he has to learn and understand and promote and support things is really quite amazing. So anyway, so that's the strategy that might work for us for now. I definitely want us to always be using the money that people donate. And so if we see the bank balance go up, I'll be uncomfortable with that, above a certain level. But anyway, I'm going to stop blabbing for a moment. We're near the end of our time, and I don't want to. I know that you all have other things to do, but the newsletter did go out this week, and you saw the other good things in there about like the Typo 3 grant to DDEV and the project that's underway there. But let's just take this last couple of minutes and feel free to comment on either the budget strategy, or feel free to comment on fundraising issues, any of those things.
If I may, it became really clear that the situation has changed. So last year we were talking about upstreaming more money. Maybe you remember. And the situation is now another, a very different one, of course. Thank you, Randy, for being so considerate and your proposal is very generous, I would say. Your work is invaluable for DDEV. But I see that we are a bit more constrained now, not only for the upstreaming, but also you fixed a lot of bugs in Docker Compose in the end. And I have the feeling that we might get a little less of that additional value that we had out of DDEV for the whole ecosystem. So that's my feeling currently. We are more constrained, and yeah, hopefully someone steps up.
Yeah, things are actually quite good. I mean, the budget situation should be okay with this strategy, and it's very, very generous of a platform to hang in with us. And you know, their contribution will be nearly half of our budget, which is, you know, very, very generous. And yet it'll be less for them. You were mentioning our upstream donations. We have, and that is a place that we could fiddle with the budget. We have tried to aim at 10% upstream donations. So we send to the PHP Foundation, to the maintainer of XDebug, to a number of places like that. And we've talked about that before. And that seems like a great thing because DDEV really is dependent on so many other projects. And so leading by example that way is a good thing. But we could trim that. And that's a modest part of our it's a modest part of our budget, but we could trim that.
Something I
Yeah,
wonder
although,
about.
sorry, although it's modest, I would be in favor of trimming that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
agree, especially like if we're talking about 10% of the budget and the budget is smaller, it may not make as big a difference to the upstream projects, but may make a big, you know, we could figure out like who's going to be affected the most, right? And you know, if it's the difference between us breaking even for the year or not, you know, there might be more benefit that way. I guess the other thing I wonder about is like if I put on my hat as someone who's not really familiar with DDEV and just looking at budgets and expenses, and you know, as you said, like I think there's a lot of organizations facing crunches right now. It would be interesting to like be able to say to the community, here's the work Randy did, which he had to discount, or Stas that you did that we had to discount over the month, and ask the community, like, what would happen if we just didn't do this work, right? Like, how valuable is that to DDEV the project? How valuable is that to DDEV users? You know, if you were to say, hey, like, you know, there was a new version of Mac OS that came out, or Docker Compose or whatever, and I had to spend 40 hours fixing things, and it was the difference between DDEV working or DDEV not working, that might get more organizations to think of this, as you were saying earlier, less as like a donation and more as a like, you know, a cost to keep things running, right? Like, you know, businesses like a platform might have stopped paying your salary, but they're not canceling their Google Workspaces account, right? You know, even though, you know, for a lot of developers at platform, it wouldn't surprise me if a tool like DDEV is, you know, as valuable to them as their email is.
Yeah, you know, I think that's really important. I think a lot of people think of open source projects as somebody's hobby that they just kind of do in their spare time, and they spend a little time on, but they don't realize that, you know, Stas and I are essentially working all the time to support and maintain and improve it. And maybe if, you know, I think your suggestion of making public what that actually means financially might be a useful technique. Matthias, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you in accounting, you also put in goodwill, and I think it's important to consider your work not as a zero in the budget, but it's actually a type of donation that can be visualized, because the moment we remove real work from the budget, we're also removing it from sight, and I think that's really important to avoid.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Stas and I have always agreed that when he went over the cap, that he showed it as a discount so that it wasn't, you know, just a free kind of thing, you know, so it was clear. And I think what you're saying is that both Stas and I need to be careful to do that as we figure out this new thing, but also figure out a way to publicize that. So that probably belongs in the newsletter and things like that.
I wonder on that same sort of vein if that could be captured as a liability to the organization. So essentially what's happening is the organization is borrowing money from you to pay for your time, and then it owes, so that might show up differently on the finances. I mean, it doesn't really make any huge difference, but ultimately it does potentially mean that if a big donation does come in, you could capture some back pay.
Yeah. Well, I know that you all have meetings to go to. Feel free to hang out if you want to talk about anything or follow up on anything. It's lovely to see you all, and I thank you very much for coming and talking about this important topic. And thanks for being engaged with DDEV in the first place. For example, by showing up here. So, thank you so much, and appreciate all your support and your friendship. And look forward to going forward, working together on this.
Thank you so much. Have
Thanks,
a good
Randy.
evening, everybody.
Thanks,
or day.
everyone.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
You. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
What a great bunch of people. Great to see you, Mike. Truls, I'm so glad you could come with your interpreters. It's great. Always great to see you, Selwyn.
Hey, Randy. I don't know that I've done a very good job with the notes. They're a bit of a mess. So
Thank you very much for doing that. At least it gives us a way to look back at it and try to understand. So
yeah, it may just confuse matters. And the other chap was helping a little bit too.
you always wonder if anybody ever looks, but the flip side is that the idea of transparency has value. So even if people don't look, then we should,